It's time again for another Moo Moo Awards mini, and to celebrate the release of Project Hail Mary that happened like 2 months ago, we're focused on the talented Ryan Gosling this time around, and we'll be ranking all of his movies. To make this easier on myself, as many of these I haven't seen yet, I will be watching them and talking about them in release order, and then throwing them on a tier list with easy to follow rules, so you know what our judges averagely think about it. Oh yeah, our judges. Each movie's score will be decided by these 6 judges. Some with always correct opinions, and some who liked the gray man. After talking about each movie, I'll show each judge's score, so you know that I'm not cheating with these placements and that I'm the most accurate judge here. Without further ado, let's see exactly what Ryan Gosling's about to put me through.
Yeah, well, all the kids at school don't know him, and neither do you. I mean, you've been here for a week. Give him a chance.
Frankenstein Me is Ryan Gosling's first ever film role, and yeah, it's not very good. It's very heavily child acted. I mean, Gosling himself is 16, and the child actors are about what you'd expect. Also, get this, Frankenstein does not even really appear in this movie. Like, the monster himself, I mean, does not actually come to life until the credits roll, and the doctor isn't even there at all. You're getting majorly catfished here if you go in thinking it's a Frankenstein movie, but I kinda like it better not being one. We follow this young boy who has dreams of making monster movies, but every adult around him, except his dad who dies pretty early in this movie, thinks that's the stupidest and craziest idea ever. I really like that it's about a kid's dream of wanting to tell stories and make movies. It's beautiful and really explored heavily, and is about the only thing of substance here. There's a lot more the movie attempts and does bad to okay with, but showcasing his dream was the part that I believe was best, and maybe should have been expanded just a bit to create an actual good movie. Stuff like his relationship with his mom is just not that good and developed way too quickly to be impactful. It's kind of corny and stereotypical in a pretty bad way. Pretty much everything about this film just left my mind immediately after watching. It's still a 3 out of 10 regardless for me, and Ryan Gosling is not in this much. He's the main kid's friend, and he doesn't get much to do outside of being there and sometimes bickering with our main character. Gosling is just as fine as the rest of the child actors, and I really don't want to comment on this performance of his since he's a child, so let's move on. Frankenstein Me gets a score of 1.8 out of 5. And I guess it is at the top of the ranking, considering the lack of competition at the moment. But hey, it's probably gonna fucking stay up there for sure.
What do you think of this one?
Does the term cruel and unusual punishment mean anything to you?
Remember the Titans is one of the most skull-filling movies of all time. It just screams wanting to be watched in a history or English class. Hell, they probably did used to show this before Hidden Figures took over from it. It's pretty good and solid for what it is. As someone who doesn't really care for sports movies, this never really got me invested in the football scenes, the way something like Marty Supreme actually got me to care about table tennis for a bit. Everything surrounding it was alright. It doesn't do anything particularly impressive, and while it does convey its message well enough, it could go much further with its themes and showcasing the integration of schools, exploring how that impacted society in general. I know it's based on a true story, and they probably followed pretty closely, but I'm positive there's something more they could have added to further push the narrative they wish to tell. I think the friendship between the 2 races of kids does happen rather fast and subtly. It almost feels like we're sort of more focused on this before and after everyone got along, rather than that middle part where they do. The connecting does happen and is shown, but not to the degree I sort of wish it was. And the challenges after those connections between the teammates themselves could have used a bit more limelight. I do like that one of the teammates wasn't really able to get rid of his racism. That's pretty accurate to how some people are in real life. It's nothing bad though by any means, the movie, not people being racist. Also, Gosling is barely in this, but he does sing a lot. So like, I guess this is what got him that La La Land gig, so A+ for that. Remember the Titans gets a score of 4.1 out of 5, putting it in great tier, and at the top of the ranking for now. It would be weird if this wins though, because Gosling is not even really starring in it. Hey, you know that kid I mentioned that couldn't get past his racist ways and become a better person? Well, he actually became someone famous in the real world. Here's where he is now.
We are Charlie Kirk, we carry the flame.
small caliber automatic without a silencer.
Why no silencer?
Because you want it to be an event.
The Believer is not very well known. This movie follows Gosling playing a neo-Nazi who also happens to be Jewish and is ashamed of that. Wacky hijinks pursue, yada yada. It's mostly just okay. I'll start with what doesn't work. The cinematography is fucking awful. Terrible camera work that I don't think I should excuse even with this clearly lower budget film. It constantly makes you dizzy and leads to some scenes being hard to follow and incomprehensible. The story itself, while interesting, doesn't take anything nearly far enough. That is most likely because it's only an hour and a half. Perhaps with a longer runtime and more time to cook, we could have fleshed out this concept, story, and themes a lot better than we do in this. Also, Ryan Gosling is not Jewish. You don't always have to perfectly cast actors that fit the checkboxes of that character, obviously, but for a story like this that focuses on a Jewish neo-Nazi at the center of it, it really could have used a Jewish lead to make it infinitely more impactful, honestly. Now to what works. Ryan Gosling. God, he's immaculate in this. He plays this role as a Nazi wonderfully, and somehow uses his pretty good charisma in reverse here to make you absolutely despise him and want to punch him in the face. He also comes off as, at the very least, incredibly intelligent and well-spoken. Like, he's a racist neo-Nazi scumbag, of course, so he is stupid in that regards, but his words and knowledge are utterly horrifying to see in a Nazi who usually consists of only the stupidest people in the world with a negative 20 in talking. The monologues, character dialogues, and interactions are better than they probably would have been, thanks to Gosling's selling of the ideas and character itself. The movie is just okay though, at the end of the day, and with the score of 2.5 out of 5, The Believer makes its way into okay tier. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone unless they just want to see a pretty good Ryan Gosling performance, but bring a puke bag because that cinematography will absolutely make you throw up.
He lied. Everything breaks.
Jesus Christ, the Sloaner rule is god-awful. I already go into football movies expecting me to get bored since I have no attachment to the sport in the slightest, but this movie had me begging for the football scene so I could escape the atrocity of everything else this film had to offer. The film tries to do too much and yet does so little with all of it by not properly expanding past the baseline on most things. Gosling's relationship with the girl he may or may not like, whatever is going on with his mom, and even his connection to the team and his friends are not really explored past the baseline, leaving me to care very little about them and said relationship when it's eventually challenged. Even the ending does a montage of his teammates, I think. I don't know. This movie is painful to watch. That means nothing to me because Gosling never even interacts with any of them outside of his best friend. That could be somewhat fine since the main connection this movie wants to focus on is with Gosling's character and his coach. Almost every scene with the coach furthers the portrayal of him as a pedophile who is manipulating Gosling's character into trusting him. However, the movie majorly feels like that's not what it wants me to think, and if that's the case, the writing of characters is abysmal. I can't possibly see how I'm really supposed to feel bad for this coach at any point, like the movie feels like it's steering me to, despite the immense warning flags and inappropriate behavior it's also showing me from him. The movie feels confused with what it wants to do with the relationship, and thus leaves the audience equally as confused of what they're supposed to feel and get out of the movie. There's this metaphor with the deer dying in the woods throughout the movie, and Gosling's character is deciding if he should slaughter it or not. I like this metaphor on paper. The deer is the coach and his struggles, and Gosling's character is deciding how to approach him and is clear dying. In the end, he chooses to help the deer instead of ending it, which, with the context of the movie, is awful. It clearly portrays the coach as not a good person, and he feels so much like a pervert that I stopped liking him. Gosling's character would make sense helping him out if it were a manipulation situation, in which case it would be cooler if that metaphorical injured deer were a wolf that attacked Gosling as soon as he helped it. That would make that part feel better, but that's not what the movie wants to do for its ending. Instead, it almost feels like it's trying to make us feel bad for this clearly pedophilic written coach and what he's gone through. Now I'm left confused about what I'm supposed to feel about this coach. Is he just gay? And if so, this writer seriously does not know how to write gay characters, instead wrote a pervert, which is further just going to push harmful stereotypes. I'm glad no one's watching this movie because of that, and I highly recommend avoiding it. Even Gosling isn't anything special here, so if you're just wanting to see him, there's better performances from him, because in this one, you're just going to get a very bare but passable one. Slaughter Roll gets a deserving score of 1 out of 5, which puts it in its rightful spot of terrible. The movie absolutely deserves last place in my mind, so I hope it stays there, but we'll see because we still have a lot of films to go.
You don't have the discipline to commit a murder and get away with it.
Let's see.
To commit the perfect crime.
Murder by Numbers is a pretty average and boring movie. We follow Detective Sandra Bullock as she solves a murder case orchestrated by 2 high school students, Ryan Gosling and the other one. It takes what would be an okay plot for a mediocre episode of a crime TV show your grandma watches and tries to flesh it out into a 2-hour-long movie. It doesn't do anything grand with any of its ideas, though, to warrant that. The performances from the actors are all pretty bare bones and just acceptable, even from Ryan Gosling himself. And it could honestly be because these characters are just so uninteresting. Gosling does an okay job as this killer persona, but it often comes out as either unsubtle or incredibly boring, which leads me to not really care about the performance. Again, likely because the film and script are boring. Sandra Bullock is a character I can't even remember really anything about, so she's uninteresting. The best part was when a random baboon with its cheeks out almost killed Sandra Bullock. It's like the best scene and could easily be cut from the movie, and you lose nothing, which is a really bad thing to have me say considering it's the only scene I liked. Every interaction feels stretched to the brim because we don't actually explore beyond the base level of any of these characters. Some have a past that needs revealing, and some are just trying to start a relationship or whatever, but none of them left me caring for the end result, because we don't really use these ideas in any fun or exciting ways to warrant me caring about this film and its characters. Exactly why it would fit in with the cop show that just needs to pump out an episode quickly. Here it's a big waste of talent and my time. It's incredibly basic in every element from the script to the cinematography, and it just had me begging for an ounce of something cool, which I got from that baboon scene, but the monkey in his cheeks weren't enough, man. Murder by Numbers with a score of 3 out of 5 gets put in okay tier, above The Believer. Nothing else to add beyond that except to look at Sandra Bullock's partner who doesn't know what a Krispy Kreme box is.
Here, take this.
What is it?
Do you have anything to say?
Here's one that pleasantly surprised me. The United States of Leland follows a young Ryan Gosling who is a convict after committing a murder. While in jail, his new prison teacher— oh my god, it's Don Cheadle! My beloved! Ah! Oh, so sorry about that. His new teacher takes a curiosity about him and wishes to hear his story to help this kid. The kid has a lot to say and seems deeply troubled by the world and hurt. What's so good to me about this movie is that throughout it all, Don Cheadle's character Pearl, which Cheadle plays well, is obviously searching for that why. Why did Ryan Gosling kill this other kid? Gosling's character Leland can't even seem to answer outside of because of the sadness he sees. Not sadness he prescribes to himself, but one he sees in others. The audience keeps waiting for that answer of why as we sort of grow attached to this character and almost hope he somehow didn't do this crime. But that why slowly feels like it never gets revealed, and perhaps doesn't exist at all, giving us, the audience, such mixed emotions of confusion, empathy, and still an ounce of hatred towards Leland for committing the murder. Gosling plays this character so well, playing such a simple yet deep and impactful, almost innocent feeling of detachment. Yet, how are we supposed to feel bad for someone who committed murder? The whole film is focused on asking that question of morality, and in the end, when I do believe we get some questions answered, we do leave off still feeling that empathy for Leland. An empathy that doesn't allow us to excuse his actions, but one that does make us feel sadness. A sadness like he saw in others, and was so detached from himself in reality that he could never pinpoint that sadness as coming from him. Before I move on, the casting here is great, and Gosling, as I said, did great. Sadly, even Kevin Spacey's bitch ass himself is solid because his character is meant to be unlikable, and he's one of the most unlikable men in the world. I'm gonna go into spoilers now for this film. Use the time codes to skip to the next section if you wish to watch this movie for yourself. 3, 2, 1. Leland seemingly pushes that sadness onto a character called Ryan, who is the brother of his ex-girlfriend and is autistic. Leland, who has revealed to have been raped by an older woman just a bit earlier, becomes so detached from life immediately after that. That's the reason he sees the sadness in others, because his mind refuses to let him see that sadness in himself and instead pushes it onto others. He kills Ryan because of that. He puts so much of his own sadness onto that kid that he feels the need to kill him because he's essentially created a second him in his mind. With his level of detachment, this is his way of ending his own life. It's truly sad and awful and doesn't excuse what he did, but does give us that why, I feel. A why you may wish you never have heard before, but it makes every scene before this reveal infinitely more tragic and hurtful. And yet the confusion in you won't leave even after this, and continues as a confusion of morality and your own feelings. Yeah, I really like this movie, and I'm really confused by the middling and bad reviews because I really liked what was explored here and enjoyed the performances, minus having to see Kevin Spacey. Some reviewers are even mad that the why isn't given, and yet I believe we are given at least a psychological reason for why. There's so much I could explore with each of the other characters as well, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. The United States of Leland gets a score of 4 out of 5, which puts it in great tier below Remember the Titans. One of my favorites of Gosling's that I hadn't seen before working on this video.
I read to her, and she remembers.
The Notebook.
The Notebook is possibly the movie of all time. Like when people think movie, this is movie. With that though, it also means it's incredibly basic. It does nothing bad or special with any of its ideas. And its love style, while cute, is nothing special, unique, or interesting here. The movie somewhat manages to be probably the most middle-of-the-road movie of all time, causing me to have absolutely zero feelings towards it outside of realizing that it is, in fact, a movie. It's solidly acted, but nothing immaculate. Ryan Gosling's character is also kind of creepy throughout some of it. I don't understand. He comes off very wild, especially at first. The story itself is alright, and the framing device with the Notebook itself, I think, adds the most to this movie, but doesn't stop it from being the movie. Like, this is the movie they will play in the background of romance movies while the couple makes out in the theater, because it is the movie. I don't think I can emphasize this enough, but if the movie existed as an actual living being, it would be every character in this movie. Close your eyes and imagine a movie. In fact, imagine the movie. The movie you are seeing is The Notebook. I wish some things were maybe fleshed out more because everything here is purely just enough to pass the test of being a movie. It's hard to actually complain about anything specific in this without it sounding nitpicky because it hits all the required beats of a movie, but it's exactly why it kind of just ends up forgettable and having nothing of value for me. I guess the big thing I want to say is it doesn't go far enough with anything. It just goes base level mostly. It just goes to be a movie. It doesn't forward that to become good movie. I legitimately don't think I could drag this section on anymore. I don't know what to say about this movie. I don't know what you want from me. I've exhausted the number of times I could say the movie, so we need to move on. The Notebook gets a score of 2.4 out of 5, which just barely puts it in bad tier instead of okay. Death Note did this plot better.
Ryan Gosling.
I need some answers!
Stay.
Stay is a very trippy film, and by the end, I didn't understand what happened at all. Just kidding, I actually did manage to understand it. It's really not that complicated. Just feels weird and complex, and I mean that in a complimentary way, as I enjoyed the experience. Ian McGregor plays a psychiatrist who is trying to help a suicidal Ryan Gosling.
Oh, won't you stay?
But that description doesn't fully give you what you'll experience here, as you watch the world being built slowly collapse into a weird blob. It's got its issues for sure, with some awkward pacing at times, and blowing the entire budget on wild-ass transitions, but I was invested in that mystery of it and trying to understand what was happening. The reveal of what's happening at the end is very well done too, and helps everything make sense in a way that doesn't feel stupid or pointless. The movie almost entirely hinges on that reveal, so I'm interested to see if it weakens on a rewatch or manages to stay good. See what I did there?
Say that again?
But since the reveal is actually decent and well executed, it makes for a well-made movie. Now let's talk about those transitions. The movie does not stop with the over-the-top transitions between practically every scene. I get it's the aesthetic it's going for, but after a while it gets stale. Or does it? See, after a while I did start thinking it was too much, but then it looped back around to being cool again. Its commitment to doing it practically every single time we cut away began to become something I looked forward to, as I wondered if they could possibly top the previous one. I know it's used as a way to add to the brokenness of the reality the movie goes for, but relax, man, you do not need to be going that hard every time you cut away, Jesus. I'm not going to spoil the ending on this one because I would basically just summarize it and not add too much about it. I don't really have anything profound to say about it on a deeper level other than it's just good and I liked it, which is what I'd say about the movie as a whole. Oh, almost forgot, Gosling is great in this. He's not the lead, which I think is a little bit of a weird, albeit interesting choice considering the reveal, but he's good here, although nothing particularly stands out other than a not so great haircut from him. With a score of 4 out of 5, Stay gets put in great tier, below the United States of Leland.
The interrupting cow.
The interrupting cow who?
Half Nelson, half Nelson, half Nelson. It's the theme song they play before the movie starts. Go check it out, it's on Spotify probably. Half Nelson follows Ryan Gosling's history teacher, who has a secret addiction, and his relationship with one of his students who finds out about said addiction. It gets about as heartbreaking as it sounds, and I believe it showcases the struggles of addiction well. The relationship with the kid gets very weird, and I have no idea what to really think of it, or exactly what the movie even wants me to think of it. Ryan Gosling's performance is pretty good, as is the kid's and Anthony Mackie, who I learned from this movie that I'm pretty sure he's incapable of aging. Outside of that, it's pretty boring. I don't know, it hits the beats and stuff it should, but I guess it doesn't push it far enough, or the premise itself is too lackluster for a movie. There's this scene towards the end with Gosling's character which is really heartbreaking to watch, but moments like that are pretty few and far between. There's this overall sense of sadness, dread, and under it, the tiniest bit of hope. But none of those feelings stay, get it? Oh, fuck, no, wrong movie. But none of those feelings stay strong enough to have hooked me in the way I wish it did. I think it does a solid job of showing a sense of loneliness also, but sadly it's just not utilized enough to keep me interested in the movie, even for its rather short runtime that feels longer because of just how slow the movie feels. I really admire the attempt here and think if it had a bit more time to cook, it could have been a pretty tragic but incredibly interesting and possibly meaningful film. It's weird because I wouldn't say it's generic necessarily, as it feels pretty fresh in the way it tells this kind of story, but it still manages to be dull often. An engaging premise that seems to stumble on its landing, and as such gets a score of 2.2, putting it in bad tier above Frankenstein Me. I guess our judges here are more of a Nelson half-empty lot, if you know what I mean.
I'm not gonna play games with you.
Fracture follows Ryan Gosling, district attorney, as his cockiness leads him to a court case he's determined to win. But it's a hard one. The court case is Gosling trying to show why Anthony Hopkins murdered his wife. This isn't like a mystery or us trying to solve the case ourselves, as Anthony Hopkins is shown murdering his wife in the beginning. Anthony Hopkins is obviously terrific in this. I mean, he's playing this smart, put-together murderer. It's the role he seems to do best, and despite him being the villain, like his other villainous roles, he's so charismatic that you almost begin to like him, despite the wicked things he does. It's interesting how his charm manages to work, because you obviously hate him, but every scene with him is so captivating. It really feels like an open and shut case from the start, leading you to be a bit confused on how the movie is as long as it is. But once Hopkins starts wiggling his way through the court process, it becomes clear that we're in for a treat. It's nothing outstanding, but it's a very enjoyable time that doesn't leave much room for boredom. Gosling, while not as good as Hopkins here, is great. He plays this prideful attorney with a huge ego very well, and makes his character development in that regard seem very fluid. I like what this tries and says about how our court system works, but it also feels kind of quiet in that regard. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's taking a firm stance in addressing that issue, and more so just wants to tell the story crafted here. That's perfectly fine, as the story is interesting even though the ending feels pretty disappointing to me. I feel like you can really debate whether Hopkins is the winner or not by the end, considering what he managed to accomplish. But the movie doesn't really want to paint it that way, it just wants you to see one person as the winner. It feels weird because it is on paper true that there's a clear winner, but with all that happened, it doesn't really feel like a triumphant winning you'd expect, even though the movie tries to make you feel it is that way. Really, the last bit of this is the weakest part. The way Gosling makes a certain discovery revolving the case towards the end feels really silly to watch play out. It feels like the idea wasn't really fleshed out at all, and they either struggled to come up with something or settled on their first idea. Regardless, any scene with Gosling and Hopkins together is really good, as the fucker is just messing with him the entire time. And it's pretty entertaining to watch as it begins to both activate Gosling's ego and slowly begin to chip away at it to the point he cares about what's right more than winning. Good performances all around that elevate an okay script for a pretty pleasant movie. Fracture gets a score of 3.8 out of 5, putting it in good tier. Holy shit, that logo's big. Oh shit, I fracture. To my arm. You'll get context for this later.
You know, Bianca's, a missionary.
Lars and the Real Girl is going to sound really weird, so bear with me. Ryan Gosling, Lars, is a pretty big loner who seems to be very shy and antisocial. But suddenly he has a girlfriend that turns out to be a sex doll. He fully believes the sex doll is real and his girlfriend, and so to help him, as his doctor said, everyone he knows goes along with it. That sounds like a really good plot for an amazing comedy focused on laughs and a good time, except somehow this isn't exactly that. Yes, it's definitely a comedy, but it's a lot less comedic than you'd probably initially think hearing that description. It also gets a lot more dramatic at times and ends up actually wanting to say something and portray a compelling story with an interesting character at its center. I'm not sure if I necessarily would have liked a straight comedy more, but I can't help but give the creators of this movie immense credit for somehow actually creating a pretty deep character and plot using this setup. I expected pretty shallow drama and such since I thought it would be a full-blown comedy, but this is no puddle as this movie gets really deep with a lot of its ideas. It explores the whole psychological aspect of why Lars thinks this woman is real very thoroughly, and it leads to some very interesting scenes where we explore the character's psychology. Scenes I never expected to see in this movie, and that are actually quite good. It just surprised me with where I wanted to take its plot, and again, I'm not sure if I would have preferred this or a full-blown comedy with this idea. This film does have weak moments. Some of the middle section really dragged for me, and I think stuff with the townsfolk goes a bit too swimmingly, so it doesn't really leave much room for conflict throughout most of it. The bit of conflict we do get does feel like it's gone through rather quickly, but it's mostly fine since it's not the strict focus of this movie. Now, they did get me to cry for a frickin' sex doll, so points there, I guess. That's not a joke, I legitimately cried during this movie, so that has to be worth a lot. I had a good time with this, I do think it's a good watch, and others agreed, as Lars and the Real Girl gets a score of 4.3, putting it at the top of the list for now. I have the opposite problem as Lars, as I don't want to love these toys, but boy are they persistent. Oh shit! Blue Valentine is truly the antithesis of The Notebook. This film looks at that and its beautiful love and seeks to destroy everything about it, from the beauty of love to Ryan Gosling's look. Because, oh my god, they actually managed to make Gosling look ugly. It's honestly impressive. I didn't think it was actually possible, but I should know better than to doubt someone who is apparently broken enough to make a film like this. We follow a married couple, which includes Gosling, as their marriage begins to form cracks and their perfect love lives begin to no longer be perfect. I really like this film and think it's pretty good, and is looking at love and marriage from a much different angle than The Notebook, and sadly is a much more realistic one. The framing device here works so much better than in The Notebook, as we get to watch the relationship blossom into beauty while simultaneously watching it wither. It makes the ending of this film hit significantly harder than I think it would otherwise, and was a clever way to utilize the idea and make us feel for these characters and the relationship. I mean, looking at Gosling's hair alone is enough to make you understand the trials of this relationship and make you scared to start one yourself. Maybe this says a lot about me that I liked one that shows relationships in such a harsh, negative light over the beautiful one. Or maybe it really is just a more interesting story. I love how tense our climax here feels, and the fade to credits here is absolutely horrifically depressing and had me hoping it wasn't so. Some marriages and relationships just aren't meant to last, and your choice is to let them park safely or to make them crash and kill everyone involved. The movie expertly explores that as the characters ignore those options and attempt to steer a car that's already lost 3 wheels. I'm glad this video got me to watch this movie, even if it emotionally devastated me. Blue Valentine gets a score of 3.5 out of 5, putting it in good tier, below Fracture. That fucker gave it half a star! Okay, we have to kick him out now. He refuses to engage with art correctly or something. Oh my god.
She's never gonna be one of us.
Isn't that great?
All good things.
Right off the bat here, I have to say that Ryan Gosling looks like he wants to put dirt in my eyes for some reason. Oh, it's her. Okay, that would explain it then. And we also got completely shaven Nick Offerman. No Ron Swanson mustache or facial hair of any kind, which is the equivalent of Mario without his mustache. It should never exist. He eventually does earn his mustache through character development though, the most interesting development we see in the film actually. All Good Things follows Ryan Gosling, son to this big New York businessman. It's as shady and illegal as you'd imagine, but he falls in love with Kirsten Dunst, and we follow the rise and fall of that relationship. For starters, a lot of dialogue exposition from the side characters feels weirdly forced and adds to a fake feeling to some of the acting. The lead acting here is terrific though. The relationship is something I feel I've seen done a million times though. And with it being a pretty bare bones and basic one, it's hard to keep interested in it, which is the way this entire film really is. It's a thriller where all the thrilling aspects are so uninteresting that it's hard to care about what's happening. It leads to a really bland package that has trouble having memorable moments, and as such will probably be one of the first of this marathon that I forget. It has very little of interest going for it, but it's also not terrible enough to loop back to being memorable in that regard. It's just at whatever time. It plays this thriller-esque music that does make you feel like you're supposed to be on the edge of your seat, but it combines it with this nothing of a plot going on that just keeps you waiting for whatever it is you're supposed to be waiting for. When we get to that moment we are waiting for it, it feels like it goes by and happens so fast, which is accurate to how that situation can feel in real life for other people. I feel bad for her, but it's more because of my basic empathy than the movie pushing me to do that, if that makes any sense. It does an okay job at portraying this type of abusive relationship, but that's it, it's just okay. I wish things were taken further, and thus would push my emotions further, and I could find these characters, who are loosely based on real people, more interesting to watch. It needed to show more of that shift, and David's turn towards corruption and wickedness. I get it was going for that sudden shift as if we were seeing it from the woman's perspective, but I just don't think that ends up working here. With such an insane story as this one, and good actors helming it, I just wish it were able to actually find its footing and get a good story out of it. It just moves so quickly through everything. It's hard to have time to settle in and care about how things evolve or end. It has a strange mix of scenes that are missing and scenes that don't seem to matter at all, making the movie feel incomplete, leaving a rather rushed feeling package on what could have been a really good film. Once we get to the disappearance and the framing device of the court case, I just do not care. There's for some reason so much done after that makes this movie just drag for so long, yet still leaves me with the complaint of relationships and character changes not really being shown well. The little interest I had is gone in the end, and despite my saying I wanted more, I wish it had ended by this point. They lost their chance and I've lost my interest. This old man Ryan Gosling is horrifying, and the reveal that he dresses up as a lady just so he doesn't have to be himself is so freaking funny that it ruins any seriousness this movie wished to offer. It just feels so stupid and isn't explored to the degree it needs to be meaningful. I genuinely can't understand what it adds to the character other than to further show his disconnect from reality and jump to insanity. I guess, but by this point I freaking get it already and don't care. I'm just ready for the credits and to move on because you failed the easy layup you had set up here. And it's pretty disappointing. All Good Things gets a score of 3.5 out of 5, putting it at the bottom of good tier despite my best efforts of putting it lower. The film is all bad things, or at best 1 to 3 good things, but certainly not all good things.
Do you remember this?
No.
Drive is a very interesting film, as I've seen people all over about it opinion-wise. Some despise it, some think it's whatever, and some absolutely adore it. I personally think it's pretty good. I love just the strange atmosphere this film gives off. Like, I can't even describe it because it feels like some moments are just so clashing, but it also works so well. The soundtrack is marvelous, and many of the action moments, which can be surprisingly brief, are excellent. The opening chase sequence in particular might be the best scene in the entire movie. They peaked a bit too early there, but the rest is still good. It just doesn't quite live up to that high, which is fine. I love the brutality of the action scenes. They're quick and ended in very few hits, and every hit has so much weight behind it though. It's incredibly different from really any other fight scenes in other movies, and it interested me greatly. I think the supporting cast is good for the most part. Walter White is a fun character, and I didn't even realize that was Oscar Isaac until like the last scene with him. Ryan Gosling though works very well here. I love the emotion he's able to give in this character's silence and mostly lack of talking. Mr. Drive himself says very little and for some reason refuses to answer people when they talk to him until like 5 minutes after the question was asked. Even when he's not talking, his face does that stare thing that feels like it just has so much meaning behind it, despite him showing very little physical emotion. He's a pretty interesting character who goes through an interesting exchange of events, all for a girl and her kid. Drive is a great movie and a great performance from Gosling. Drive, with a score of 3.7 out of 5, ends in good tier, between Fracture and Blue Valentine. And baby, he can drive my car, if you know what I mean.
Take off your shirt.
Why?
Will you take off your shirt? Seriously?
In Crazy Stupid Love, we follow Steve Carell, who has just received the news that his wife wants a divorce. This leads him down a path of depression where he meets womanizer Ryan Gosling, who just loves to party and fuck a woman. This movie contains lots of other characters that all get their moments to develop and really come together. And I really like that. I do think it's a bit too long though, perhaps because there are just so many characters whose stories we all at the very least touch on. And it starts to feel a little bloated with unnecessary scenes or moments. I love the stuff with Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, which is the focal point here. And I think the film does an excellent job at making both their individual character developments interesting and fluid. There's just a bit of fluff somewhere that I think needs to be cut, because with almost 2-hour runtime, which I know doesn't sound that long, the movie did slightly overstay its welcome towards the middle and end. I really like the part where all the individual storylines converge at the house though. It was so hilarious to watch unfold, and just when you think it's over, that bitch David Lindhagen just shows up out of nowhere to send you over the edge with laughter. It's a really solid comedy with a story that keeps you interested enough as it sets up its comedic moments. Terrific performances from everyone, and there's no way this didn't somehow influence the casting behind La La Land, considering Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are such a good couple in this. And their relationship gives strong beginning of La La Land vibes. The two of them just have really strong acting chemistry together, I guess. Ryan Gosling's character is probably my favorite, as he's just so cool that his womanizer persona works just so well, because you hate how he acts, but he's also Ryan Gosling, so you also still want to fuck him. I love the development he goes through, and I think it happens pretty fast, but in a way that worked for me and felt like good pacing for the movie in that regard. Anyways, good movie, just shrink that runtime and cut some fluff in other sections, and it would be even better. Crazy Stupid Love gets a score of 4 out of 5. Putting it at the bottom of great tier.
But I have to believe in the cause.
Ides of March follows George Clooney running for a Democratic candidate in Ohio for president. Except it doesn't follow him, and we instead take the focus on his press secretary, Ryan Gosling, who is the lead here. An interesting choice of where to focus a political thriller, but an inspired one that seeks to make this film more interesting. Except it doesn't fully succeed in that, as this is a pretty average and basic political thriller. Okay, that's kind of a guess, as I can't even think of another political thriller I've seen, but if I had to guess the tropes of one, this would be close to fitting all of them. For For the first half and some change of the movie, I was pretty bored and couldn't get myself to really care about the transpiring events or the political race, even though I think Clooney is a pretty charismatic politician in this. Gosling is always charismatic, which combined with his likable character at first makes for good characters that are just put in a boring story. That is, until we reach that previously mentioned little over halfway point, where the vibes of this movie and even the story have changed. The movie's real goal becomes clear, which is to show how politics change and corrupt even the most righteous of people, as it rips and tears apart your ideals, all for the price of chasing your dream of success. The ending half, which still having some dull moments, did have me hooked and entertained enough to regain my full focus as we reached our conclusion and I watched Gosling's character adapt and change. I think that part was really well done, it just takes way too long to get to that point. And with the boring first half, it does significantly damage my opinion of this movie. If the last half could be felt throughout, this would be a solid 7 or 8 out of 10, but as it is, I gave it a 6 out of 10. It's still good, just missing that push in the beginning to hook you to the point where it gets better. It's like Mario and Luigi Brothers ship in that regard. What the fuck am I doing? This is a Gosling video. The people watching this don't even fucking know what that is. You're mixing two completely different addictions of yours. The Ides of March gets a score of 3.2, putting it at the top of OK tier.
If you ride like lightning, you're gonna crash like thunder.
Place Beyond the Pines follows Ryan Gosling, motorcycle driver. He loves to smoke and just looks like he'd smell like shit. He eventually picks up bank robbing after finding out he has a child. I think it's a pretty interesting story here. Following Gosling's character leads to some interesting scenes and scenarios. And while maybe not the most groundbreaking thing, it is interesting. The final action scene with Gosling in particular I thought was really good and the highlight of the movie. I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil it, so skip this section if you don't want spoilers. 3, 2, 1. So yeah, Ryan Gosling dies not even halfway into this movie. I wasn't aware of this, so that came as a surprise, but we actually get 3 different but connected stories with this sort of overarching theme. Each story kinda gets progressively more boring and basic though, it feels. The second story with Bradley Cooper Cop, while a solid representation of corruption in the police force, doesn't reach the excitement, tension, or just overall goodness that the Gosling section brings. And the third chapter, where we follow Gosling's son, is easily the most boring section. I feel like it adds very little of value throughout most of its setup, because that's all it is setup. All it wants to do is end that theme of corruption and violence by showing this character ending the cycle of violence. This entire section is just a means to an end to get to that point, and as such doesn't do anything interesting. Honestly, if it was just the first section, I'd give it 4 stars. But the middle drags it down a little. It's probably like a 3.5 or 3-star movie on its own. And the final section just kinda makes it end with a rather underwhelming part, and is about as middling as you can get. Probably would be a 2.5 stars from me if it was just that. Which sucks because of just how good the finale of Gosling's section was. Maybe there was a way to split these stories better so I don't feel like I'm spending so long in the uninteresting section. Or maybe the final section just needed to be cut entirely. Or maybe just flesh out the Gosling part. It was easily your strongest part and had me hooked. And I feel like you could have pulled together like 30 more minutes worth of stuff to explore there to craft a movie with just that. Gosling is doing really good acting here, and it feels like you waste him in the uninteresting setup you crafted to tell 2 more boring and less inspired stories. The 3 story things is a choice though, just not a choice I think ended up working out for me. And just left me wishing we stayed with the consistent greatness of the first act. The Place Beyond the Pines gets a score of 3.3, putting it at the bottom of good tier.
Don't go.
Don't let me.
It's time for Gangster Squad. This movie is so boring. Cop Josh Brolin is tasked with putting together a team to take down Mickey Cohen's reign of power and wacky hijinks pursue. Gosling is part of said team, and this is the first of his movies I've watched where I legitimately think he's part of the problem with it. Every other one, he is at least acting at a required level to make it serviceable. But here he has made the decision to do this accent, or he was told to do the accent, that he is freaking terrible at.
What are you doing here?
He sounds like a child, like his Leland character, which works there, but it's not what they're going for here. So it takes you out of the movie and makes me laugh every time he speaks. In fact, most of this movie makes me laugh when it is trying to be serious. The movie truly feels like it's positioning itself to be a The Naked Gun style parody of these types of films. But just when it almost reaches those levels of over-the-top silliness required for a parody film, it stops and takes what's happening very seriously. It just doesn't work and leaves with a laughably bad action movie that thinks it's both funnier and more serious than it actually is. The cast here is insane, with some legitimately good actors like Josh Brolin, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and Sean Penn, and it wastes every performer to create an incredibly boring action cop movie. I don't care for these characters at any point, which makes certain moments that are meant to make me feel something do absolutely nothing for me, and the only performance I found any worth from was Sean Penn as the villain, who appears to be in a different film from everyone else. I'm pretty sure I either got bored or laughed at every action sequence, and with that being the focus of this film, with boring dialogue meant to just be white noise while we wait for the next action sequence, this movie fails beautifully. Well, 2 of our judges don't agree, but that's my opinion. Gangster Squad gets a score of 3.2, jumping into the top of okay tier. Ryan Gosling, I'm sorry, but you can say no to an accent or character if you can't do it, buddy.
Want to fight?
Was that Stranger Things? Only God Forgives reunites the director of Drive and Ryan Gosling for another movie where Gosling only talks like 5 times. It's also so disappointing to watch this after seeing Drive because this gets nowhere near as good as that film in any aspect. There is a story here, but it's so incoherently bad and boring that it feels like an afterthought to everything else. The shots are truly terrific. There are some beautiful scenes here if you remove all but the visuals. But sadly, there's more to the film than that, which waters down the excellence here. It's just a mess of weirdness and grudginess that doesn't really work here because it never finds its footing to jump in the first place. So it never sticks the landing. Ryan Gosling's character and pretty much everyone else are there just to serve as eye candy for the beautiful shots, because they are certainly not interesting to watch outside of that. It's a beautifully crafted burger artistically advertised, and then you bite into it only to find that there was no burger at all. It sells me something that isn't there at all, and then spits on me for daring to engage with it. Not only that, but you feel like you've been sitting there watching this boring movie for 3 hours to find that it's not even an hour and a half long, and yet you've somehow aged a year before this even ends. I was struggling to stay engaged after the halfway point because beautiful visuals can only stay appealing so long if you're going to ruin everything else here. Only God Forgives gets a score of 1 out of 5, putting it at the bottom of terrible. Look, I could have been meaner to this film. One of the judges rated it poorly because they tapped out after 10 minutes, realizing they needed to read the very little dialogue in this movie. Remember that if you ever feel I make fun of that judge too much. Only God can forgive him for that.
Then this guy walks into my office and says,
There's some shady stuff going down.
The Big Short follows a bunch of rich white guys realizing they can get more richer if they bet on the housing market crashing, despite everyone saying it's stable. And with it being 2005 or whatever, we all know where this is leading to. Surprisingly, this is a comedy with just very dramatic moments. You'll have real semi-in-depth discussions about the morality of literally betting against the collapse of an economy, while also having Margot Robbie in a bubble bath trying to make you understand this financial stock shit. Which, while certainly a way to explain things, I'm not sure it helped me, as I didn't understand that shit at all. Like, I got the basis, obviously, enough to understand what these characters were doing, but any more depth than that and I had no idea what we were talking about. I think the performances are pretty strong, and I like that Ryan Gosling would look directly into my soul and personally remind me how cool of a person he is. I felt spoken to. I honestly think the strongest stuff is in the end, as these characters who got rich off of this all kind of realized that your ordinary, normal people absolutely got screwed over, which is really delved in by seeing this family living in their car. The family we saw earlier living in a pretty nice house. It's tragic and really gets you to see how fucked up everything is. And even more fucked up that practically nobody who caused this even got a lick of punishment or financially hurt themselves. I mean, that scene where Gosling tricks you into thinking those people did all face consequences just for him to jokingly remind you how the real world works is such a harsh arrow disguised as a comedic moment. It's actually pretty well crafted, especially there at the end. I think the comedy doesn't always land. Many of the gags sort of come off as corny for me, and I wish those more dramatic moments were a bit more prevalent, especially if they could utilize comedy well within them. It's long, and I really felt the length, not necessarily to an awful degree, but I don't think it utilized the length to a degree that made it worth it. Still thought this was good and rather interesting though, even with these minor complaints and the wish it would really further explore these themes of capitalism's absolute horrendousness. The Big Short gets a score of 3.2 out of 5, ending in OK tier between Gangster Squad and Ides of March. In honor of its anti-capitalism messaging, I'm going to be ripping all my money. Again, I still have no money.
I was told to keep you here, so I'm keeping you here. Just following orders.
You know who else was just following orders? Hitler.
The Nice Guys follows Ryan Gosling, private investigator this time, but he's not a very good one or a good father, as he's always getting drunk. Opposite him is Russell Crowe, who beats up people for money. Both want to be good people deep down, or nice guys, if you know what I mean. And with a new case on both their hands involving a porn star, now they have a chance. This movie is an action comedy film, and I think it utilizes both those elements pretty well. The action, while not super spectacular, does do the job of being interesting and entertaining. The action provides a nice break from the constant comedic moments it throws at you. Although comedy is also implemented in the action a lot, which is pretty funny. It's a lot better than Gangster Squad, both in the action and comedy departments. The comedy is truly hilarious, unlike that movie. There are some great lines in here that I didn't remember from my first viewing of this film, so I got some fresh laughs and things I like to quote, like that line I played in the beginning here. Both Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling play these roles well. It's nothing incredibly new from either of them, but they've managed to nail these characters to still make it interesting, especially with their deliveries of the comedic moments. There's a bit of noticeable child acting that can take you out, but it's forgivable since it's not super prevalent after a while. The plot is surprisingly entertaining too. Again, nothing insane, but they didn't half-ass it either and just create a background for the comedy and action, as it feels like there's actually a story here and emotional moments. Said emotional moments, as well as the character development, do get moved past very quickly at times, which is especially noticeable with Ryan Gosling's character's drinking addiction and relationship with his daughter, in my opinion, but I think overall that probably ended up working out better for the pacing of the film. It's just a damn good time all around with some great laughs. This movie makes me think of The Other Guys a lot, probably because they both have guys in the title. Oh wow! No, they both are sort of a buddy cop comedies, kind of. I think this is a lot stronger than The Other Guys, mostly because Russell Crowe is a more likable version of Mark Wahlberg for me. And while The Other Guys has one better joke,
Aim for the bushes.
the jokes here are more consistently good. I have no idea why I decided to compare the two here, but now you know my opinion on the Guys duology. Most of the judges do agree with me about the movie being good, maybe not about it being better than The Other Guys, as The Nice Guys has received a score of 4 out of 5, landing it in great tier between Remember the Titans and the United States of Leland.
La La Land, one of my favorite films by one of my favorite directors. Ryan Gosling portrays Sebastian in this film, and it is one of his best roles. He, through his performance, shows the struggle over choosing art, and a career, or a person you love. He shows his ambition, sacrifice, and the true reality of following your dreams. La La Land, at its heart, is for the fools who dream, with an ending that will break your heart to pieces. A film where you learn that in following your dreams, there is enough room for two if you make it.
La La Land gets a score of 4.4 out of 5, which puts it at the top of the list for now. Also, look at J.K. Simmons doing a little dance in this movie.
To endless misery.
Song to Song is a very weird case. It tries to take its somewhat simplistic love plot and boost it with a rather unique and strange editing style. That editing style might work for some, and I think I do understand what it's going for. It's trying to create this feeling of brief, spliced together moments so that it's easier to put our own experiences onto these characters. It sort of makes sense, but it results in a rather boring movie. I was unable to stay interested or connect to these characters because it felt like I didn't know them. I'm merely watching them all touch each other while they explain something that's happened already that I don't get to see. Almost nothing meaningful is actually shown as we're too busy creating this interesting style the movie goes for that gets incredibly stale and repetitive by the 1 hour mark. Somehow, this movie stretches that to a little over 2 hours, so when I checked the runtime, thinking I was almost done, I realized I was just about halfway through. That's kind of the true sign of boredom and tapping out if you're checking the time in hopes it must be almost over. Like, I get we really want to show our characters just living from moment to moment, relationship to relationship, song to song.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
But there had to be a more interesting way to convey that without making this weird, jumbled mess of an idea that's only real benefit is making one aspect of the film feel somewhat unique. By the 6th time I'm getting some weird poetic voiceover while Ryan Gosling touches a woman, I'm tapped out, man, because I just don't care. I haven't been able to see myself in these characters, and I sure as hell don't care for them since they feel like nothing. Literally, here is how the movie plays out. I saw a chicken cross the street, and it was almost metaphorically a love ballet, as an alien disintegrated him, and I became that butterfly. What is love? Oh baby, don't hurt me. If you somehow got meaning out of that right there, then hell, you'll probably love this film. But by the 10th time of seeing that exact same thing happen and feeling absolutely nothing from it, I'm not going to be interested anymore. I don't want to jump from song to song if none of the songs are interesting or elicit any emotions from me. Song to Song gets a score of 1.5 out of 5 and goes to the top of terrible tier. Blade Runner 2049 is such a cool sci-fi movie. If you haven't seen original Blade Runner, then, well, it doesn't matter. You can watch this and understand it without that. Hell, I still haven't seen original Blade Runner, and I really don't feel lost or like I'm missing anything. I think that's a real service to this movie too. Ryan Gosling is a replicant, meaning he was artificially made. Not a robot, but not naturally born either. His job is to kill earlier replicant models because they have free will or whatever, and replicants don't deserve emotions. Yada yada, he breaks free from the programming after discovering a replicant was able to have a natural-born kid, which shouldn't be possible. The plot is just stellar with interesting directions it's taken after that point, and many twists and then untwists that results in such a captivating narrative. A captivating narrative that is then combined with the stellarness of every aspect of this film. The visuals, oh my god, they're gorgeous. The cyberpunky city shots with the neon and just the use of colors in general is absolutely magnificent. It's such a pretty film to look at even with the grudgy feel of some of its environments. It adds a richness to the world while also maintaining an almost bleak atmosphere when needed, to create such a vibrant piece of art that makes it stand out from other films in this genre. The soundtrack as well adds so much to the film, with intense music at times that adds to the fierce action sequences that have a nice snappiness and brutality to them. A little more softer and gentler tracks to really sell those raw emotional moments that Ryan Gosling manages to sell immensely. And even the use of no music at all to add more intensity to certain scenes. And this all adds to this already phenomenal film. The performances are great too. Watching Ryan Gosling's character go from emotionless to having feelings feels such natural. It's a really good performance from Gosling and feels like an improved upon version of his Drive character, with even more added into it. His relationship with hologram Ana de Armas is so well portrayed too, as it furthers to push the question of what being human even is, and what is exactly real, which is the overall theme of this entire film. A theme that is explored really well and pushes the audience to really engage with it, and question themselves while they watch Ryan Gosling throw Dave Bautista through a wall. I'm sure Harrison Ford's character and inclusion would be more impactful for me if I watched the original Blade Runner, but again, his character and the plot still are followable and good without me seeing that. I wish Jared Leto wasn't here, but unfortunately, like the Kevin Spacey casting in the United States of Leland, Leto works here because the character is clearly meant to feel like a creep and a pervert, which Jared Leto is obviously a natural at. Just an incredible package all around that leads to Blade Runner 2049 getting a score of 4.6, as it beats out La La Land to reach the top of the list.
First man to walk on the moon. That'd be something.
First Man follows the story of Neil Armstrong as he becomes the first man to walk on the moon. It's also directed by Damien Chazelle. That's right, the La La Land guy is back for a very different film, and he's brought Gosling with him. Gosling is a very interesting choice too, because he doesn't really scream Neil Armstrong. Not necessarily his looks, but just the vibe he gives off. It's just not a role you could ever picture him as. Like, if I asked people to cast a Neil Armstrong, I don't think Gosling was going to be their choice. I don't know if he's too famous, but it was hard to see him as Armstrong throughout this movie. He was always just Gosling acting to me. I don't think that's his fault, nor did it ruin the movie completely, but it made my opinions on it feel very weird. I'll go ahead and get the other thing that's weak out of the way too. The plot. It's kind of boring. Like, outside of the space stuff, it feels like the pretty basic, generic biopic stuff you'd see. All of that stuff I feel like I've seen a million times, and nothing is pushed farther in that regard, so it leaves for it to be pretty bland and kind of just okay. It's 100% serviceable for me, but I really just wanted more from there, because with how it is, it leads for the length of the movie to really be felt, especially towards the beginning. What does work incredibly well, though, is the cinematography, specifically in the space scenes. That probably makes you think, oh, we get pretty shots of space. And you do get that like 2 times, but that's not what I'm talking about. This movie shows the absolute horror of space travel, especially early on. The camera work really pushes to make the viewer themselves feel claustrophobic so they can fully understand how these astronauts feel. Like, I'm just freaking out and sweating watching these people crammed in a tiny thing in a big-ass suit, as they're kind of just left in the hands of everything working perfectly. It's utterly horrifying and as shit you'd actually see in a tense scene of a horror movie. Like, them trying to stop the shit from spinning like crazy is treated with the same intensity of trying to stop a Saw trap. Okay, that's a lie, I've never seen a Saw movie, that's just how I imagined watching that would look and feel. Regardless, the space stuff is fucking awesome because of that, and were the moments I was fully invested in it. Like, I know this guy gets to the moon safely because I know how this ends in real life, and I'm still panicking about the rocket blowing up. It's interesting and cool how they managed to do that. Not Damien Chazelle's best work, but still a good watch. First Man, with a score of 3, gets put in okay tier, between Murder by Numbers and The Believer. The other judges were not a fan of it like I was.
You hurt?
I mean, my ego's a little bruised.
The Gay Man, or Gray Man. Ah, yes, Gay Man. Good job talking. Now that would be a good movie. The Gray Man is about Ryan Gosling's CIA assassin facing off against Chris Evans' villainous sociopath in a global game of cat and mouse in this explosive thriller. You probably think that was me doing my bit where I described the movie using actors' names instead of the characters, but nope. That was me literally using the description of the movie Netflix gave me. Even they know the boring, bland-ass plot was not enough to pull in viewers, and instead decided to rely on the big-name actors, hoping some buffoon will put the movie on and scroll through TikTok during most of it so they don't realize how utterly dog shit of a movie this is. Even from the start, you can feel the roughness and butchered script of the film. The start feels like it's just dumping info on us in a very weird way. It makes the dialogue feel very awkward. It doesn't really serve a purpose, as this could have been easy dialogue exposition done in 2 seconds later, instead of making for an uninteresting and awkward opening. Ryan Gosling's character seems to be written conflictingly throughout the entire movie, because you can never pinpoint if he wants to be the quiet, focused, straight man John Wick archetype or a jokester Brad Pitt bullet train, which doesn't make it original or a complex character, and instead just fucks Gosling over and makes his performance as incomprehensible and bad as the fighting, which I'll get to later. Meanwhile, Ana de Armas feels like she's given nothing to work with other than go be a female action lead, which leads to her entire part of this to sadly be forgettable. I kinda like Chris Evans' performance here. He's the only one who feels like he was given something interesting and strict to stick with to get a decent performance out of him. It's sort of what we get from him at the end of Knives Out, but a lot more unsubtle and for a longer period, so it felt quite fresh from him. Perhaps more fun than actually good, but he was actually enjoyable to watch for me, unlike everything else of this film. He also seems to be cosplaying as Henry Cavill, which is an interesting choice. Gray Man. Fighter of Chris Evans' character. Okay, I guess they put the actor's name in the description because whoever wrote it immediately forgot his character's names like I just did. Or, more likely, they fell asleep during the movie, also like I almost did. Now, about that bad fighting I was talking about. You get that quick cut, hand-to-hand, close-up fighting that we do see in something like Winter Soldier, but here it just feels awful. Almost every action scene is shot the same way with a smoke, fog, whatever, covering everything. Which is where the gray part of the title comes from. Except sometimes it's pink, you know, for that diversity quota so it can get that Oscar nom it deserved. The Pink Man doesn't sound like a good title though, so they had to stick with their favorite color they used to hide their weak choreography with instead. They couldn't come up with interesting action scenes or set pieces, so they decided to gray smoke everything in hopes the viewer is too busy on their phone and only catches glimpses of this awesome action. Like, please film, I want something other than the 90% of the film that is Gosling in a smoky room. Gosling in a smoky room. The smell of gray in main fight scenes. The few bits that don't use the smoke make you understand why they needed it, since it hides the boring choreography mixed with terrible looking visuals that make what would be epic moments easy to lose interest in. Why did this cost $200 million? And how do the Russo brothers seem to be getting worse as directors? Like, they made some pretty competent and well-done Marvel movies, just to turn around and try the same thing again now with Netflix, that somehow makes you question if they were ever good directors or if you're just blinded by your love for the Marvel characters they throw at you in previous movies. The story surrounding the action is also boring, and I have literally nothing to say about it, other than having that random flashback to explain Gosling's relationship with the girl he's trying to save is such a jarring and weird shift. It feels like it's placed at a very weird spot and probably should have been put somewhere else, like the beginning, which would be better than the beginning scene I mentioned earlier. I mean, it already is just a bare bones basic relationship between the two, even with that scene, so cutting it would also change almost nothing. That and about 100 other changes would make this movie watchable to the degree where you wouldn't zone out of boredom constantly. And the final confrontation, man, is fucking stupid. Evans has the girl hostage, and then Gosling is told Ana de Armas has a line of sight to shoot Evans, so Gosling then moves so Chris Evans will move. She had a shot to save the kid. Why did you make him move? You just had to stand there, you stupid bitch. Then Chris Evans lets go of the kid, and instead of letting Ana de Armas take the shot, he decides he wants to fist fight him alone. Maybe it's like an ego thing, but I never once got that sense of a fucking ego from him before when he'd do unsportsmanlike grenade shenanigans and such, so why does he care now? Who knows, but we've got to have a final big punch-out fight with awesome cuts so you can just feel the snappiness of everything. Yippee! I did not like this movie, if it wasn't clear, and I find it to be almost the same level as Red Notice. Yeah, I'm pulling out that insult. But alas, as usual, I was outvoted. So, Gray Man gets a score of 3 and manages to somehow be an okay tier above the first man. I wonder if Joe Russo's character in this is the same as his Endgame character, who is the first gay guy in the MCU. If so, I guess that's why they call it the Gay Man.
Can I talk to a doctor?
You are talking to a doctor.
And I need a clicky pen?
No.
A sharp thing?
No.
There he is. Doctor!
Somebody get security.
Barbie is about... No, there's no need for that. Everyone knows at least the fundamental idea of what the Barbie movie is. Even the few and possibly 0 people watching this that haven't seen it. It's one of the movies that arguably saved cinema from dying after COVID almost killed them. And it also only sort of brought feminism back. In that regard, it's been called basic, the feminism part, not the COVID part, and not going far enough in that department. But I don't know if it was ever meant to go all the way to space with that idea for 2 reasons. One, it's a comedy, and even with heavy theming, it does have to have a sense of lightheartedness at times for those jokes to land. 2, and more importantly, this is more of baby's first feminism art. That meaning this is many early teens and tweens' first exposure to what feminism is. They've, especially the girls, have seen the way that they have been treated, but they haven't really had those countermeasures to understand what it is or what to do against it. and many also don't realize it's an issue faced universally by all women. I've also seen older women discover that same thing through this movie. Many, since they grew up in a time even more set on in-your-face patriarchy, have never even come face to face with the ideas showcased in this movie, or able to even realize they can be more than their men. For that, I believe the movie is truly important. It does all that while also managing to be a really stellar comedy. The jokes in this are absolutely hilarious. The way it manages to translate how kids play with Barbies into the actual world building and movements of characters and objects creates so much comedic elements that have me giggling even on my 6th watch. Ryan Gosling is so funny, it helps to really nail those hilarious jokes and mannerisms Greta Gerwig wrote for this film. Almost every singular thing that exits Ryan Gosling's lips is the funniest thing on the fucking planet. He plays such an incredibly stupid character through Ken, while also helping to be the mirror to our world his character's meant to portray. The rest of the supporting cast is great too, especially Michael Cera as Alan, whose awkwardness, as usual for Michael Cera, provides a great sense of comedy. Barbie gets a score of 4.7, which puts it at the top of our list, and has a good chance of Wait, hold on. I feel like I forgot to mention something while talking about Ryan Gosling specifically. Oh right, the big song thing. Doesn't matter what film I vote for, it's always number 4. No one knows how hard I try. Oh, I have feelings that are not so straight, which send it deep, babe. All my life been so polite, but it's time for me to fight, 'cause I'm just gay in this country that's barely okay. The most I get each year is rainbow capitalism. I'm just gay. When I see a lady, I think she's hot. Even though man will swear it forever, I don't think I have autism. I wanna know what it's like to touch woman a whole time. Why ain't it a crime to be a woman when not born as one? Will the world finally accept me and let me have fun? Can you feel the true gayness? Can you feel my true gayness? Can you feel my true gayness? 'Cause I'm just gay in this country that's barely okay. The most I get each year is rainbow capitalism. I'm just gay. When I see a lady, I think she's hot. Even though man will swear it forever, I don't think I have autism. I'm just gay, and that's okay. And I love doing women. So hey, you've clocked me now. I'm just gay. I am gay, and so am I. Woman, give me a big hug. I'm mentally ill and I'm on drugs. Whoa, we're not doing that version. You've ruined the flow of the song. Baby, I'm just Ken. I'm Just Ken became big for a reason. It's hilarious. The choreography, lyrics, and performance by Gosling all come together to create a catchy and hysterical song that helps to elevate the comedy of this movie, and hell, the movie in general, to the next level. We are all Ken. The Fall Guy sure is a movie. Look, I didn't really care for this one, honestly. Ryan Gosling is the Fall Guy, meaning he's a stunt double, but a messed up stunt leaves him injured. Now he's ready to return to stunt doubling, but an actor is missing and he's gotta find him. Also, love plot with woman as well. My main problem is the first big portion of this movie feels like nothing's happening. It's all either build-up that takes way too long to get through, or it's Ryan Gosling doing wacky stuff that doesn't really add anything of value until we get to the twist. The twist is alright and makes sense, but it still wasn't enough to hook my interest. Everything's just pretty average, honestly. The action is okay, probably the best part. The plot is okay and serviceable at just being set up for the next action scene, but doesn't really push beyond that. I think the music use is whatever. It's a lot of pop songs that don't really add much value to the scenes they're in, unlike Shrek 2, which uses their pop songs well. This was just an excuse to bring up Shrek 2, but it's not horrendous usage of them like Shrek the Third's. This was just an excuse to bring up my dislike of that movie. My favorite part is when he gets drugged or whatever and starts seeing the unicorn. I don't care for the unicorn, but it added this cool effect to the action that I really liked and helped to keep me engaged fully in that sequence. Kraven the Hunter is an okay and kind of fun character, especially after the twist, and the Minecraft cameo at the end is pretty funny, but kind of wears thin on a rewatch. And Baku is there to be a friend and do movie quotes. That's something. I can't think of much more to say with this one, honestly. I didn't think this was bad or anything, just felt a little basic to me. But still a fun watch, honestly, that at least entertained me and didn't make me want to die, like some of these other movies did. And Shrek the Third also did. Most of our other judges liked it more though. The Fall Guy gets a score of 4.1, putting it in great tier below Remember the Titans. Here's my audition for the next Fall Guys movie as Ryan Gosling's stunt double. You'll get context for this later. You fucking bitch.
I've never done anything. I've never done a spacewalk. I can't even moonwalk.
Project Hail Mary is a movie about a science teacher who ends up on a space exposition to help save the planet Earth. And on that journey, he meets an alien, and they work together to save their planet. I think the pacing of the movie was very well done. There were a lot of super fast-paced moments where a lot was happening all at once, and then there's a lot of very homey kind of moments where it's a bit more cozy, so the pace is slower. And I think they did a pretty good job of pacing the movie out. I really like Grace as a main character. I think he's a very relatable character. He has that average Joe kind of feel almost. Before you really find out about what happened and how he ended up in space and stuff, he's just a normal guy. He's just an average middle school teacher going the day to day, just trying to get through life. And I appreciate that. I think he's a pretty cool character. I like him. Ryan Gosling did a very good job. His performance was phenomenal in Project Hail Mary. It's by far one of my personal favorite movies that he's been in. I absolutely love Rocky. Rocky is my favorite in that entire movie. I love him. I think he's adorable. He's just a silly little guy. And his design is so cool. I love it. I think he's so cute looking. And I like that he's very small. I really appreciated that because, like, when I first saw the trailers and stuff before they dropped what he looked like, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's like this giant alien or something crazy. But he's just like this tiny little guy that's like the size of a medium dog. And I love him. I like the relationship between Rocky and Grace. I think at first it's a little on the skeptical side where, you know, they're both kind of like, who are you? But then it's like watching their relationship form and grow. It's beautiful. I absolutely love like the dynamic they have. I really appreciated, honestly, that they kept his whole past and how he got there a bit of a mystery, but were slowly revealing it like bit by bit by bit when something like relatable was happening to it or when he was thinking too hard on it and stuff like that. I kind of enjoyed that a bit. It added to this sense of mystery because he's like, I don't even know why I'm here. How did I get here? What is happening? And so you as like the viewer, you're also kind of on edge, like, wait, what happened? Why are you here? It was kind of crazy. I like that they did that. I think the visuals in this movie were phenomenal, honestly. Like, I liked the random scenes of like just pure outer space and like the different planets you would see when they were by them. And I also really liked, like, Rocky's ship looked super cool. Like, I think they did a really good job with, like, the special effects and the visual effects. It was just phenomenal. They were very, very pretty, very captivating. I have nothing but high praises for it. I would not make a single change in this movie. I think it's a perfect movie. I think the ending was pretty satisfying. I don't really have any complaints about the way the movie ended. Normally, I'm just like, I wish there would have been more. I wish they would have done that. Or, oh, I wish I would tweak the ending a little bit normally, but I feel like the ending of Project Hail Mary was really, really well done. It was very fleshed out. There's not really any loose endings to it. I think they did a good job. Everybody should watch this movie. Stop this video and go watch the movie.
Project Hail Mary gets a score of 4.8 out of 5, putting it in perfect tier. With it being the only one that reached that level, it is in fact the winner. Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. We gotta get away from here. And that's every Ryan Gosling movie ranked. Project Hail Mary managed to take this one home for a first, with The Slaughter Roll being the worst and rightfully at the bottom. I hope you found a film here that intrigued you into watching it, and if you've already seen them all, then I hope somehow our ranking was exactly the same as yours. And if it made you mad, just remember, it wasn't my fault. Hell, you know what? It wasn't anyone's fault. We all are allowed our own opinions, and we are all individually right, because we're all enough. Except about the gray man, I still can't forgive that. Here's some fun stats, and stay tuned to the very end for a hint at the next Moo Moo Awards mini.
Hello, I Bubble Freak.